Tonight, we bring to you a very special
Episode of Blossom.
episode of Blossom,
Where she...
starring the completely unfuckable... Shit, I was trying to remember what the dad's name was. No,
Oh, wow. I
Can't-
thought you were thinking of her name. I know her name.
Miriam Miak?
Mayim Bialik?
Mayim Bulk?
No, not... she's
Buy
not-
in bulk.
She's not for... you should buy in bulk. It just makes financial sense. But no, she's not Farouz's sister.
Farouz in bulk?
I don't even know what we're doing anymore.
Catgirl from I Don't Know Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Anyway.
I'm gonna find out what the dad's name is after this.
So the dad from Blossom? Yeah, I don't have a clue.
Ted Danson.
Nope.
No?
Nope.
I will say Blossom's friend on that show.
She had a stupid name.
Yes.
Her name on the show was stupid.
The name of the show was stupid. I would have, when I was a younger gentleman,
Yeah.
and she was a younger gentleman, there would have been some conceptual,
Conceptual. It would have been real experimental. Brian Eno would have produced it.
yes.
Yeah.
In fact, I would have, in theory, pretended to have sex with her in my head.
Some real conceptual sex.
I would have had some sexy conceptual dreams.
Man.
About...
I like how anyone listening, and if anyone is listening, God bless you, currently, and maybe for the rest of the whole show, has no idea what this is about. We have done nothing to give any indication. I blame myself. I did bring up Blossom, so that's on me.
It is on you.
But, what are we doing?
Her name was Six.
That's right.
Not to be confused with Sean Waltman.
No. Both fuckable.
Ted Wass.
No, I would not have told you Ted Wass for $1 million.
Star of the program...
Stage and screen?
Star of Stage and Screen, now a director, directs episodes of Mom.
Emmy Award?
Sorry, Emmy Award winning
Mom.
Mom.
Weird.
Anywho, we've decided that we are going to record a very special episode of our fine, well-listened to and appreciated podcast.
Award-winning podcast?
Yeah. Yeah, it won some Slammies, some Webbies,
Some
AVNs.
some Spike Guys' Choice Awards?
Probably.
Probably.
Because if you win something on Spike, you know you're important.
Yeah.
A huge internet craze happened that both myself, Drew Sarian, and the man sitting next to me, Scott Henson, got invested in.
Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, the show.
Yes.
The Netflix original.
Netflix original series.
Um,
Still haven't said what we're talking about yet.
I'm impressed. I really did not think we would go this long,
I had a
especially
feeling.
after a Blossom reference.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, we haven't mentioned it. They're gonna see the name of the episode.
I know.
And already know.
Yeah.
So theoretically, we could go as long as we want without saying it.
We're not surprising anyone but ourselves at this point.
Yeah. The moment of is the biggest surprise. So of course, this huge internet craze is the Netflix original series Narcos.
I was going to say that. I was going to think, what's it? Yeah, I really was. That was going to be my jump in.
Good.
Yep.
Of course, the show that we're actually speaking of is the hit CBS drama NCIS New Orleans.
Oh, God. Oh, look, we're losing any goodwill at this point.
Okay, the actual show is Making a Murderer, which I power watched in a day, and you power watched over an evening and then the next day.
Yeah, something like that.
And can I say that nothing has been more bonkers and insane in my entire life?
Yeah, and just the craze of it, or how it caught on and how fast it caught on was crazy. I had a friend tell me about the show, I want to say when was it released? It was released in late December?
Late December, yeah.
Yeah, so
right before Christmas, I think.
Okay, yeah, so I had a friend tell me about it on New Year's Eve. and I had not heard of it. And he said there's this thing on Netflix, totally wild, this documentary, a little bit like The Jinx that was on HBO, called Making a Murder. And he spoke very highly of it. So I'm like, oh, I'll check it out. And then... And as I said, I had not heard a thing about it. Like that was me hearing about it for the first time. Within 48 hours of that, it was the biggest thing on the internet. It was crazy how fast it just snowballed.
Yeah. I was on Netflix at some point and I saw it. But the thing is, for me, whenever I see one of those true crime drama related things, I kind of associate it with bad TV. I associate it with A&E or
and Dateline.
Dateline and things that are just
don't watch alone.
They're kind of entertaining, but they're also very network television,
and there's not much to them.
And they're kind of aimed at housewives or people who are oh, don't leave your house, all these terrible things are happening, right?
Yeah.
So I had seen
Are you getting murdered right now?
Where
Stay
are your
tuned.
children? Do you know where they are?
Who's in your children right now?
I assume it's a pedophile.
Or other children.
That's true.
They can do what they want.
They are starting awfully young.
Babies having babies.
Babies having babies. But yeah, so I saw it and wasn't really sure what it was and didn't know that I wanted to get invested in it because I didn't think it would be good. But then, within 48 hours of whenever, it might even been the next day, it was just that's all that the internet was talking about.
Like you see on Facebook, it's the top trending thing in the corner there.
And everybody's posting the theory of this, the theory of that, and it's and I was I didn't even really know. I just knew it was a murder thing. I didn't know that it was what it was all about. That it was about a potential framing and a guy getting off. So, but before we actually get into this, if you haven't seen it and you don't want spoilers, too fucking bad.
Yeah, but you're probably listening to the wrong thing right now because we're going to talk about the whole thing.
We're going to talk about a thing that you haven't seen and don't know about. So either turn this off, or watch the entire season and then don't come back to this and listen to it. Or listen to this and just don't watch a show.
Yeah. Or listen to this and then watch the show, which is a weird way to go. But
it'd be interesting to see what, if with the information that we talk about,
if we bias you or something,
or if you watch it and you notice the things we're talking about.
Yeah.
So a real brief rundown of the show, if you aren't familiar with it, is that it's based off of a real crime that happened in Wisconsin. So this guy whose family owns a property of a junkyard or a metal scrap yard.
Yeah. Salvage yard, whatever.
In the 80s, this guy's married and he has kids, and he gets arrested for a rape and goes to prison for 18 years with limited to no proof other than the fact that he had done something that had upset a police officer.
Yeah.
And through the course of time and with the evolution of DNA testing, they found through DNA evidence that it was in fact not him.
Yeah, and he was completely exonerated.
And he was completely exonerated and released, and they even figured out who the person was.
Which was a guy who was, when Stephen Avery was released, the guy was already serving time for another sexual assault.
Yeah, another sexual assault, and he was a man who was already well known to police.
Yeah, and should have been investigated
in the first place, but because of the officer who was married to his cousin, they really did not scan for other people. It was kind of pinpointed that immediately oh, that's him. It was Stephen Avery.
Yeah.
So
to not entirely paint Stephen Avery as a saint, he did a bad thing, the thing that pissed off the police department in the first place was he and his female cousin, basically hated each other.
Yes.
And
which was never really fully explained.
Yeah, they didn't go that deep into it.
Other than I think it was implied that she thought he was just a sexual deviant.
Yeah,
Whether or not he actually was is never confirmed.
Yeah,
but
she accused him of being a creep, not towards her, nothing incesty, although that comes up later. Incest related stuff anyway. But yeah, I think she said he was jerking off on the hood of his car outside or something.
That's what she said, and then having sex with his wife outside in public
Yeah.
where people can see.
Yeah, and just generally talking shit on him, and he eventually got tired of her talking shit about him, and he he ran her off the road and pointed the gun at her.
Apparently an unloaded gun.
It probably was. He
Pulled an unloaded shotgun on her and told her pretty much to like
quit talking shit about
stop
me.
being a cunt.
Yeah,
in a nicer term.
so that was that. So and yes, that is illegal. What he did, you're not supposed to run people off the road and point guns at them, loaded or not.
Yes.
So yeah. So that's what he did, and then she told her husband, who was in the police department, and that's why the police department has had it in for him since then.
Yes. So, once he's released and cleared from the original rape charges...
Yeah, so... it
was 95.
Arrested 85, released 2003?
Yes. 85, 2003. Yeah, that's what it was. So, he gets... when he gets released... Goes back to like, you know, his family home where all of his siblings and his parents live, and you know, clearly he's been mistreated by law enforcement, and the media has portrayed him as a bad person. He also
has the craziest beard of all time when he gets out of prison.
Yes. But the thing is, like, you know, if you looked at him, and I'm sure that if you had not seen the show and you didn't know anything about the trial and you saw him, I don't know that you would immediately assume that he was a bad guy. Like, he doesn't have that look. He kind of has, like, you know, he just looks like a hillbilly, kind of.
Yeah, he looks like dumb country guy.
Yeah, but he doesn't look like a murderer.
He doesn't look murdery rapey, no.
No.
And you obviously can't tell every murderer or rapist by looking at them, but, like, some people you can.
Well, there's people that have, like, murder faces.
Yeah, like Jeffrey Dahmer has a murder face.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. O.J. Simpson has a murder face.
Yes, he does.
Shame he's never murdered anyone in his lifetime.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Glove didn't fit. Must have quit.
Did not fit. Yeah, it's correct. If you can't get a glove over another glove, it doesn't fit.
You know, the way people wear gloves.
Yeah. So
Chewbacca defense.
This is Chewbacca. Anyways, so you know, he's not like, he doesn't look like a bad guy, but obviously he's had some wrongdoing done to him and decides to go ahead and file charges of, you know, false imprisonment, like all the major ones against the police department.
Yeah, police negligence.
Negligence and, like, just, you know, all the things that you would file. And so originally what had happened was he was just asking for the money to help him live comfortably. Like, I mean, he's been in prison for 18 years, no income, his family's relatively poor. Like, they are on the poorer end of the spectrum. Sure, like, they all have a working scrap metal yard, but, like, how much money can you really make?
They have a salvage yard in rural Wisconsin.
Yeah, like, it's not like they're broke, but they're not
killing it.
Yeah, exactly. So he just wants the money to make up for the 18 years where he couldn't work, and he, like, you know, he has...
And by the way, I think anyone who had been wrongly in prison for 18 years would want at least some fucking money.
Yeah. And, like, you know, he had kids, so, like, obviously he hasn't, if now, I'm making a bold assumption that white trash would save money for their children's future, but because he couldn't work for 18 years, there wasn't any chance of him saving money, right? No. So he's entitled to, like, some form of monetary, like, exchange of money, right? And so he decides to sue the police department.
Yeah.
And after a long process, and it's getting near the end of, like, you know, what they lowball offer him. Yeah. And he gets like public defender, or no, not public defenders, civil rights lawyers. Yeah. He gets his own civil rights lawyers. They really go to town for him. Like, they really go to bat for him. They help him a lot. So now, during this time, a woman goes missing. Yeah. She's like a younger woman who's taking pictures for Auto Trader magazine, and they know that. So she comes to his property to take pictures of a van he's selling.
They're selling, yeah.
And she's going to put because this is like 2003, 2004, so, like, magazines were still a thing.
Yeah, magazines existed.
Right, so she's taking pictures to put it in the Auto Trader magazine so that he can sell his van, right? So she goes missing, and then this is when it gets next level crazo.
Yes, and he was her last appointment.
He was
that
their
day.
last appointment, but there is no at the time. Like, so if you're going chronologically through the story, there's no evidence to state that she's been murdered.
No.
It's just that nobody can get a hold of her for a couple days.
Yeah, so
which I mean, obviously, is not a good sign.
Yeah.
But it's not an immediate like she's been fucking murdered, chopped up,
Yeah.
dead.
So her appointment with him was on October 31st, and her last contact with anyone else that can verify it was earlier that day.
Yes.
And then I think she's reported missing on the second.
The second. It's the second. Yeah.
48 hours after.
Yeah. So this leads to like a snowball of the police department, who he has now infuriated by suing for money.
Yeah, the police department who already had it out for him and falsely imprisoned him for rape.
Yeah.
Then he gets completely exonerated, makes them look terrible, and is now suing them.
Yes. So the police department, who he has like now proven to the media and the world are incompetent and can't do their job, now are like chomping at the bit to get at him. Now they finally have a thing to get at him.
Yeah.
So the course of the rest of the series is obviously they arrest him for her murder with limited to no proof. The only proof is that she was on the property at some point that day. That's the only proof they have when they arrest him.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, we obviously will talk about what we have, like, because we both have theories of what actually happened.
Yeah.
So I mean, we don't have to go through every little detail of the show. Like, if you want it, watch the show.
Watch the show.
But over the course of it, like little tiny tidbits here and there are revealed of like some of it seems to you as a viewer, hopefully, that it's like pretty blatantly obvious, like planting of evidence or like hiding of evidence, or just like lack of of real evidence, and it goes through it goes to the trial process, and then he wins the wrongful suit against the police, but he's already in jail for the murder, so then he has to use the money to hire lawyers. And he's granted what, $400,000?
Yeah, they gave him basically $25,000 a year.
Yeah, which is not. He was asking for that much, and his civil rights lawyers were asking for $18 million,
I think they're asking for $1 million a year. Yeah.
So, I mean,
a little different. So they gave him the minimum.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's a podunk backwoods county.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have $18 million to give. They probably didn't even have $400,000 to give.
Yeah, I feel like the $18 million would have basically bankrupted the sheriff's department.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's evidence here and here and there, but like, of course, with this now, everybody on the internet becomes a lawyer and a sleuth.
Yeah.
And everybody's got theories, everybody's got ideas, because so spoiler alert, at the end of the trial, even though you may watch it and you will look at the amounts of evidence that are given, he is convicted of the murder.
Yep.
Even though there is very limited proof that he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a main reason why he gets convicted is he has a nephew who, at the time, is 16 years old. At the time of the murder, is 16 years old.
Yes.
And he is clearly of a limited mental capacity.
Which is the kind of wording they repeatedly use on the show. Kid's retarded.
Oh, he's very, very retarded.
He's in special ed.
He's 100%. Oh, yeah. And the way that they did, like, the thing is, it's funny you see all the little details in the show, because, like, they specifically talk about him to make him sound less retarded, so that his testimony is more credible.
Yes.
Right? Because, like, they don't clearly come out and say, like, oh, he's dumb. Like, he's fucking dumb. They say, like, he takes some regular classes at school, but he also takes some special classes at school. His IQ's low, but it's not low. It's just a little bit lower than average. But, like, when you see him talk, you see the footage of him being interrogated, he is clearly, like...
He is very, very simple.
Yeah, very simple.
And I don't even really know what the term for the condition is, because it's certainly not Down syndrome,
And yeah,
and it's not autism.
it's not autism.
So I don't. Maybe is it even a condition, or can you just have that low an IQ and it's not a condition?
I think he literally it's just a low IQ.
he's just a grade A dummy.
Because he was fully functional.
He's got donkey brains.
He's got donkey brains. Yeah, he's fully functional.
Yeah.
Like he's capable of
Yeah.
making food for himself, getting himself to school.
Yeah, he's not
like
he's not disabled.
no, not at all. He's
not developmentally disabled.
He's just dumb. He's just dumb and slow.
Like they list his IQ as 69 to 73, and the number for retarded or whatever the correct term is now is 70. Mm-hmm. So
he
there
fits.
You go.
He fits, right?
Yeah.
So of course, like the main evidence that they use is that he gets interrogated by two. One's a federal officer and one's a detective, right? For the county.
Yeah.
And he gets interrogated by himself, without his mom, without a lawyer.
Yeah.
And they pull him out of school, and the two detectives literally put words in his mouth.
Yeah,
they literally get him to say what they want him to say by playing like. They give him we already know what you're going to say, we just need you to say it defense.
And then at no point does he himself give any details. They give him the details, and he says yes.
Yeah.
It is the most blatant, false confession I've ever seen.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can clearly see that he is not thinking.
No.
He's not coming up with things in his head. They ask him questions, and he gives the straight-up answer, and they're like, why are you lying to me? We already know the answer. You just have to tell us what the answer is.
Yeah.
Well, what else happened? What did the one part where they ask him what happened to her head?
Yes.
And then he's like, he cut her hair off.
And they're and that, which is not what they wanted to hear. There was no evidence that
they wanted him to admit that his uncle shot her in the head.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted. They had absolutely no proof that there had been gunshots to the head.
Yeah.
They wanted him to say it so they could use it as evidence.
Yeah.
So when they asked him that, and he says, "Cut her hair," and then he says,
"What else? What else?"
He
with her
punches
head?
her a bunch, right?
He punched
and then
her,
he chokes her.
And literally, you see the kid just grasping at stuff what do these guys want to hear?
Yeah, because
and I'll tell them whatever they want
exactly.
to hear.
He's so afraid of what's happening,
and also has no concept of the consequences to him.
Yeah,
because he thinks he's just going to give this testimony and go back to school.
Yeah,
after admitting to murder.
At some point, he even asks, "What time do you think I'll get out of here? Because I have a project due."
Yeah,
in the middle of them making him confess to
murder.
Right? He clearly doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah,
he has no concept of this is a terrible thing that you're admitting to.
Yeah,
right. He just he's just uncomfortable and doesn't want to be in there anymore.
Yeah, so he's just saying yes to whatever, and he never tells them that she was shot in the head. They keep asking what did he do? What did he do to her head? And we know, just tell us. And he just keeps guessing and guessing and guessing all this stuff that clearly didn't happen to her head.
Yeah,
and there's no evidence she was punched. I don't think.
Well, you couldn't prove anything because she was burned.
Yeah, yeah. But just from the bone fragments they found, all they had was that she was shot. And so then one of the two cops eventually just like gets frustrated.
Yeah, loses
and
his
says
shit.
like, "All right, we know she was shot in the head. Just say it." And the kid's like, "Oh yeah."
Well, yeah, it's like he never physically gives them the answer.
Never produced any details.
No. And the thing is, like, during the trial, like, everybody sees the footage of that interview. Like, they can all clearly see. But because the way that they've worded it so that they're like, he's not retarded, he's just a tiny bit dumb.
Yeah.
So that his credit, it's more credible.
Dumb testimony still counts.
Yeah, it's still testimony.
Yeah.
And so, so they use that as a main point of the prosecution. And then there's a lot of information about what happened with the jury, because the jury, I've never done jury duty. I assume you've never done jury duty.
I have got out of jury duty twice.
Nice. Did you pull the Tina Fey?
Yeah.
That is 100% what I want to do.
I didn't pull the Tina Fey, but I would love to. I don't really think it's fair for me to be on a jury because I can read people's minds.
Fancy dress as Princess Leia.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the jury, generally when you go in for a verdict, I guess what they tend to do is they go, okay, let's just start. Who thinks he's guilty?
Yeah.
Who thinks he's innocent?
Yeah, when they first go into deliberation, they take a poll to see where everyone's at. Like who right now thinks guilty, who right now thinks not guilty, who's undecided.
Yeah. And apparently when they did that, it was 7 innocent,
Yeah,
3 guilty, and 2 undecided.
Yeah, so majority innocent.
Yes.
Strong majority.
Strong
innocent.
majority innocent.
Yeah, 7 to 3 to 2.
Yes. And so it was what, 2 days that before the guy had to leave, right?
Yeah.
So they do 2 solid, however many hour days of deliberating.
Yeah, probably 8-10 hour days.
And then one of the jurors has to be physically excused because you find out later in the show that it's because his daughter got in like a pretty bad car accident.
Yeah.
But they just say that he has to leave for personal reasons.
A family emergency.
A family emergency. So now they have to decide like throwing out any evidence, like they have to go through the process of like, is it a mistrial?
Yeah.
Is like whatever it is. Of course, somehow they manage to get it so that they just have to do the whole process again, right?
Yeah,
like
with a new juror.
juror.
Another option was to do it with just 11 jurors.
With just 11, yeah.
Which probably would have been better, although I don't know. Because they interviewed the guy who was excused, and he said, yeah, it was a majority innocent, but there were, I guess, all of those 3 who were guilty, or at least one or two.
It was two of them.
Like, were not budging.
No, they would not budge, and then I don't remember. I don't think they say it in the episode. I think I read it afterwards. Was that one of the 2 was the father of a Manawak County deputy, and the other one was the ex-wife of one of the Manawak County deputies.
Oh, so good. They totally shouldn't have been filtered out in the selection process.
But I guess somehow that wasn't brought to the attention. Like, obviously the prosecution clearly, like, hid that.
Sure.
And they were apparently the 2 people that were, like, strongly, like, nope, he fucking did it. You fucking change your mind right now. He did it. And, like, the thing is, like, no matter how much if you're gonna beat people down nonstop for 10, 12 hours a day for, like,
give up.
2 or 3 days, they're eventually gonna give in. Like, nobody is that strong-willed to the point where you're gonna have somebody constantly screaming in your face.
Yeah.
And, like, the guy that the excused juror even says, like, they were aggressive, like, very aggressive.
Yeah.
So, like, but that came out afterwards, and, like, obviously you can't do anything about it after.
Post-verdict.
Right? Like,
yeah.
So that's the big thing. But so obviously the internet is like hugely up in arms.
Yeah.
There was a giant petition that went and got enough signatures to get put through to like Obama.
Yeah.
But he said that it's state law and he can't do anything, which is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, if you're the fucking president,
get on it.
You should be allowed to do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah. State law.
Bush kind of did it.
Bush did a lot of stuff. State law versus federal law is really weird. Does it work the same in Canada? I feel like I know more about American law than Canadian.
I don't think...
I feel there's very little provincial law that couldn't be overruled by federal.
I agree. I think that's the way it is.
But there's so much like states' rights stuff in the U.S.
Yeah, and it's because every state is so like one is way over here, and one has like middle ground, and the other one is way over. Like none of them have equal ideas or like they're all over the place as far as what they believe. Like some still have the death penalty, some don't. You know, like it's just
that's true. Yeah, the states are like Oregon to Pennsylvania to Mississippi, like 3 like just entirely different.
Yeah, whereas like if you like BC to Ontario,
not a big deal,
not really that much of a difference, right? But like because like it almost seems like all of our provinces and territories are all like collectively Canada.
Yeah.
Whereas in the States, like a lot of states are just like it's like us.
Yeah.
Like we're not America. We're Missouri.
Yeah.
Like we're a state. We're Texas. Like we are not.
Texas is definitely not.
We are not all together a country.
Yeah.
We are like this is what a Texan believes. This is what a Missourian believes. Like there's a huge separation.
And I ain't letting no jigaboo in the White House tell me how to run my state.
I want to see his real birth certificate. He's from Kenya. Anyways, so yeah, like it's ridiculous to me that he is the leader of the country, and he can't do anything. But I guess like
he can't do something about a state court ruling.
He can't do anything about a lot of things. Like that's the thing is like I feel bad for the president because even if you wanted to make changes, you really can't.
I was literally talking about this earlier tonight. Just like Obama is basically proof that even someone with the best of intentions can't really do shit.
No. And he gets a super bad rap for it because everybody hates on him for not making changes. But the fact of the matter is, when you have to, like, you're a voice, you're pretty much a
Yeah.
signature.
Yeah.
You're a signature on a bill that the opposition that hates you wants to get done.
I think because obviously he was obviously in politics for a while, but I think he didn't discover the true mess of bureaucracy that you have to get through to make any sort of significant change nationally. I think he's a good guy, and I think he really did come in with the best of intentions as far as presidents go. Because I think anyone who wants to be president and actively tries to be, they're a little odd because like that's a very specific thing to want to be like the most powerful man in the world. It's a certain type of person that goes for that. But as far as those type of people go, I do think Obama's a good guy, and really did, especially compared to like your Bushes and whatnot, really want to make things better for the general population. Where I don't think that was a priority for Bush.
Yeah.
But it's just so tough.
Yeah.
It's so fucking
And
tough.
it's because you have so much opposition, and because representatives for each state, I fully believe, are like controlled by whoever the biggest corporations are in their state. So
Yeah.
if you're like the representative for Texas, it's probably oil, and whoever's got the oil money is kind of in
Yeah.
control. Like, so that's why there's nothing seems to get done. And like, he tried to get healthcare together, and granted, it was kind of a shit show.
But
at least he tried.
He tried, and what he did was all he was allowed to do.
Yeah,
Like,
he did the best that he could with what he had.
Because I've never seen a political party in the first world fight free healthcare harder than the Republicans did during the whole Obamacare thing.
Yeah, and
like,
it's
crazy.
All they did was just shit talk it. Like, that was their whole motive, was just to downplay Obamacare.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Like, anything proposed, I do feel like it's more one way. I don't think the Democrats oppose the Republicans as hard as the Republicans oppose the Democrats when they're in power.
I would agree with you.
Because just anything the Democrats try to do, the Republicans, like, regardless of of its merit at all, they're just like, no, it's a Democrat idea, fuck it.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Well, the thing is, like, obviously
it's so divisive.
Obviously, they're separated, like, on the spectrum, right? But I feel like
the autism spectrum.
On the autism spectrum. But I figure, like, okay, like, assuming there's on a middle, like, the Democrats are obviously on one side of it, but I feel like the Republicans are, like, so much further from, like, they're the extreme part of politics. Like, the at least the Democrats are at some point willing to compromise or willing to listen to ideas or change, because they do have a good, like, maybe that's just because, like, for me, like, I vote Democrat here when I vote. I don't always vote, but when I vote. So I don't know if that's just because, like, that's my way of thinking, but I almost see the Democrats as, like, the sane ones.
Yeah.
Like, they're the ones that want change and
like,
aren't crazy.
If you take center, like, Democrats are, like, 1 or 2 notches left of center, and Republicans are, like, 30 notches right.
I think 30 is generous.
It might be.
50.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I agree. So, anyways, Obama did the best he could. Couldn't get him out of prison.
Yeah.
So, of course, this kind of spreads to, Reddit's the big one, because it sounds like all that people do on Reddit now is just, like, pick apart pieces of things, and, like, there was a photo of Teresa Halbach standing in front of her vehicle that had been in the show and nobody paid attention to, and then a Reddit user found the picture. In her hand, you can see her keys, and they are not the same keys that they found in Stephen Avery's bedroom.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Interesting.
Yeah, and so I saw that yesterday. So, of course...
Way to go, Reddit.
Way to go, Reddit. Of course, everybody has their own theories, and they kind of range from sane to completely batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I shared a link with Scott on Facebook that had one of the best ones, which was this guy who is notoriously known for framing people in murders.
And then, like, inserting himself into, like, news coverage of it and stuff.
Yeah, like getting him, like it's like this sick game where he like has to be, he likes to witness it, but
Yeah.
he like likes the proof of him witnessing it.
Yeah, he wants to take credit without getting in trouble
Yeah.
for murder.
So like they have him behind like the Zodiac killings, and then the best one was Jumpin' A Ramsey, which I thought was
Which
hilarious.
I don't think anyone has ever suggested anyone besides her parents.
But like I think the thing about that is the funniest part is that it's like he's really gonna go to Denver,
Yeah.
find a little girl who does pageants,
Kill her.
murder her, and frame her parents. Like,
Yeah.
real, like that's hilarious.
That's
to me
nonsense.
That's the funniest part to me.
He did the one thing he like. This guy is a serial killer.
Yes.
He's been
Yes.
found guilty of 5 murders,
I think it's 5. Yeah.
and he did insert himself into the West Memphis 3, one of the documentaries on it.
Oh.
Yeah, and one other thing, he attended the funeral of I think a kid he killed, which is fucking,
That's creepy as
which is
shit.
fucking gross.
Yeah.
But
Psychopath.
but yeah, so yeah, the guy but where this came from is there's a really quick shot in the show of this fat guy standing in the background of a shot where they're interviewing the DA.
The DA. Yeah.
And it looks like him.
Yeah, it does. It 100% does.
It really does look like
it
him.
It really does look like him.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
But
it's a unique idea, but like
yeah.
So now this kind of sucks that we recorded this at this point, because when I had said to Scott after we finished the show, I said, because I finished it first, I said, when you're done, text me, and I said, I've got an interesting theory. We need to record this as a podcast because I want to tell you my theory, but let's just record it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it took us a little bit of time to get to it, and the theory that I had has now been kind of figured out by a Reddit user. Well, the Reddit user figured it out in more detail than I did, so I shouldn't say that
But it's the same
similar
concept.
Same concept. So now, unfortunately, it kind of just looks like I'm just copying the story, but like.
And as far as people are people like down with this theory on Reddit?
People 100% think it's legit.
Okay, cool.
So like, there was 2 theories that I was kind of like in my head I was tinkering with. One of them didn't make as much sense, which was Teresa Hallbeck's brother and her ex-boyfriend at the time murdered her.
Yeah, I've heard a few things about her brother. He does give, because he's on the show a lot. There's a lot of news interviews with him.
Yeah. And a lot of courtroom footage of him reacting to things or like looking impatient.
He does give kind of a weird vibe, but I never pegged him for a murder. Also, there didn't really seem like any motive.
That's the thing for me is like I couldn't think of what an actual motive for it would be.
Why would he kill his sister?
He gives off a weird vibe,
and
there's something about him that like I just don't trust.
Yeah,
but it's not like the thing is I feel like he's it doesn't like it's never mentioned in the show and doesn't come across to anybody, but like I feel like their family was strongly religious, and to me he feels like a very like very outspoken Christian. Like that's what I just got from him.
Yeah, he looks like he could be that.
Yeah.
Also, I'm sure he definitely wanted Avery to be found guilty.
Yes.
Regardless.
Yeah.
You could tell he really wanted that. And you know what? If my sister was murdered and a guy was on trial for it, I'd probably want that guy to be found guilty too.
Absolutely.
Because I want someone to be found guilty for my sister's murder.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
And the dude was obviously in a super weird place at the time, so I don't hold too much against him. He did give kind of a weird vibe, but again, I don't think he did anything wrong.
Yeah, and it doesn't really make sense as to why. But like the one thing that I have seen is that there's a part in the show where they show footage of the ex-boyfriend and him, and they're giving like a public news conference about her going missing.
Yeah,
and there is some weird interactions between the two of them where like they look at each other like they need to get the information straight between the two of them before they say something. Like, one of them will be talking, and there'll be, like, a pause, and they'll kind of look at each other, and then the other one will start talking.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, you could just misinterpret that as, like, they're just not comfortable being in front of the cameras, right? Like, so that was, at first, that was the idea that I was kind of like, maybe that's it. But the one that I actually thought was real was, so Stephen Avery's retarded nephew's name is Brendan Dassey. And in the course of the series and the trial and the footage from the trial, Brendan's brother, Bobby, who's older and not a retard.
Yeah, and looks almost identical to Brendan, only not retarded.
Yeah, looks very similar, not retarded, and a little bit older.
Yeah.
So, like, Brendan was, like, 16, he was probably, like, 19 or 20.
Yeah, I'd say he's 3 or 4 years older than that.
And then the other one is their stepfather, who is, like, he comes across as somebody who very much hates Stephen Avery.
Yeah, Scott
Tadich.
Tadich.
Tadich is his name.
Yeah, so, the thing that sticks with me about him is, I think it's in the last episode, maybe second last episode, him saying to the camera, Avery being found guilty is the best thing that's ever happened. Not like regarding this trial, in history.
In history, yeah. So, I think the thing that first threw me about it was the fact that the two of them were each other's alibis.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing to me that made, like, because, like, so, Bobby, the non-retarded brother, says that he saw her on the property.
Yeah.
And he was leaving to go hunting.
Right.
With his stepdad.
Yeah.
And that the only person that saw him that day was his stepdad.
Yeah.
But their alibi was that they drove past each other.
Right.
So if they're going hunting together, why are they driving in opposite directions?
Right.
And so they were each other's alibis. They both live on the property.
Yeah.
They live 30 yards from where the body was found.
Something like that, yeah.
So
yeah, because like the whole like Avery extended family lives on.
They all live on the property, yeah, and they all live within close proximity
houses,
to each other, yeah. Trailers, not houses.
Sorry, trailers.
So that was the first thing that
feels like a house. It's home.
Sure. That was the first kind of red flag to me, and then just the way that Scott Tadich gave his the thing is like.
By the way, Scott Tadich looks like a fucking scumbag.
Oh, he looks like a total scumbag. He looks like a murderer.
Yeah.
But, like...
mustache, mullet, the works.
But, like, widow's peak mullet.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, like... his wife is Stephen Avery's sister.
Yes.
There was no indication like, at the time, like... During the course of the trial and the murder and stuff, there is clearly animosity between Stephen Avery and his sister.
Yeah.
Because now her son is investigating for helping a murder, right?
Yeah.
So there's clearly... But before that, there's absolutely no reason to think that the two of them have any kind of animosity or hatred towards each other.
Yeah, as far as we know.
Right? So there is absolutely no reason for Scott Tadich to hate him, right? Like, It's not like it's technically his family, right? Like, sure, he married into it, but it's his family.
Yeah.
And just the way that he, like, seems like he's so glad Stephen Avery gets caught for the murder. Like, it just makes me think that...
Like, Scott Tadich's stepson is in jail, too. He does not care.
Couldn't care less.
Does not care.
Probably to him because now he doesn't have to look after him.
He's just so psyched that Avery is in jail.
Yeah. So the theory that I'm getting at here is that Bobby Dassey and Scott Tadich killed Teresa Hallback.
Yeah.
And they murdered her, they raped her, they did whatever. Maybe in that order, maybe in opposite orders, who knows.
Either way.
So because she's clearly on the property. They're clearly on the property.
Mm-hmm.
They kidnap her, they rape her, they murder her. They take her out to the quarry and burn the body.
Yeah.
And then because like you can't just leave it in the quarry, the body, what's left of the body, the cremated body. Stephen Avery has a burn.
By the way, the show, first time I've heard the term cremains.
Cremains, yes. That was a weird word.
Cremated remains. Makes sense.
It makes sense, but I've never heard it before.
Never heard it before.
So Stephen Avery behind his house has like a burn pit where he burns like tires and like, branches and shrubbery that he cut down and garbage and just like it's just a way to get rid of stuff, right? So the remains of her body are actually found in that pit.
Yeah.
So what happens is, I think that they take, because remember that part of her remains were also found in that barrel.
In a barrel, yeah.
So what I think happened is they burned the remains in the barrel in the quarry.
Yeah.
And then while transferring it,
yeah.
lost some in the quarry.
Yeah.
Transferred it. And
yeah, that's the thing. Her remains are found in three places
on the property, and the quarry is like the opposite side of the property.
Yeah, way away from
like
it, yeah.
a long ways away.
Yeah.
And so they transport the cremains
yeah.
from the quarry to the burn pit. Parts of the body gets left behind at the
they wanted
quarry.
If they were good, they would have got 100% of it, but they didn't.
Yeah, because
they ended up finding about 80% of it where it was planted,
yes.
where they planted it at the end.
And I think that the idea was, that they would transfer it there, and then just over the course of burning things and you'd never find it.
Yeah.
Right? So they lose part of it at the quarry, they put the majority of it in the burn pit, but they don't clean out the barrel. Also. That's why there's also some found in the barrel.
Yeah.
And then what happens is they hide her vehicle on the property, because
there's a million
cars. Yeah, there's 100% a million cars. So they show an overhead view.
Yeah.
And there's, now, granted, where it's hidden is not ideal because it's kind of close to everything. Like, why you wouldn't hide it on the far end of the property, but, who knows? If you're panicking or whatever, right? Like, you're just going to put it wherever. So, I think what happens is that they murder her, and, like, there is no intentions necessarily to frame Stephen Avery.
Right.
They've done this, and they're just, like, hoping to get away with it. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is, her brother and ex-boyfriend sneak onto the property to investigate, and they end up finding the car.
Yeah.
And this is... this is the more details that the Reddit user had than I had.
Okay.
Because his theory... my theory was just, like, they find the car... They tell the police, right? But so he says, whoever the Reddit user was like, they find the car 2 days before it's reported found by that lady and her daughter.
Yeah, and that explains the call.
That explains the phone call.
Is that from Link or
no? It's the other dude.
Colburn.
Colburn, yes.
Yeah, who looks like, just the first time I saw him, like, he's a bad person.
He's a bad person, and he's definitely one of the police officers that was out to get Avery the whole time.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Coburn is absolutely a scumbag.
So the brother and the ex-boyfriend find the vehicle ahead of time. They tell the police, so they tell Colburn. He comes out on his own, off duty, to look at it, and then the phone call is made from a cell phone to dispatch, not through
his radio.
The radio, because the car, he doesn't have his police car. And when he finds out that it's her, he needs time. So he's using this as an opportunity to put it on Stephen Avery.
Yeah.
So that's why he removes the license plates.
Yeah.
Because when the woman and her daughter, when they're searching, they find it, that's why there's no license plates. But he's called in the license plates.
Yeah, and his call to dispatch is recorded, because everything is recorded, and it's played, and he is so clearly looking at the car and license plate at the time he is making that call.
Yeah.
And he's not supposed to be, because the car, in theory, isn't found until 2 days later.
2 days later. And he's also, like, it's this kind of car, right? Like, this year, this make.
Yeah, he's, like, double-checking on everything.
Yeah, like, he exactly has it down to a T, right? So...
Because, like, he reads the license plate, and she says, yeah, it's registered to Teresa. And he's like, green Toyota, right? And she's like, yep, green Toyota.
Yeah, like 99 Toyota, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that's the one. So
the one I'm looking at right now? Okay, good.
The one that's right in front of me? Okay, cool.
Great.
And so, now this is his opportunity. So now he gets in contact with Officer Link, who I think is the sketchiest, scummiest police officer in the history of police officers.
I think Colburn is scummier than Link, but they're both scum.
I guess they're both scum. Okay, yeah, sure. He gets in contact with him, and then this is their opportunity to make the police force look like a good police force, right?
Yeah.
Because they've clearly been shown that they did incompetent work, and they arrested the wrong man, and then they're being sued for wrongful everything.
Yeah.
This is their opportunity to say, like, no, we got this right. Stephen Avery's a bad guy. We put him away. Like, who knows how many murders and rapes we prevented by having him in prison. that's when they sort of plant the evidence,
Yeah.
and then it's just coincidental. Like they didn't murder her. They had no idea. They weren't in cahoots with Bobby Dassey
Yeah.
and Scott Tadich. They had no idea. It was completely coincidental.
Yeah, it was two, like, separate things.
Yeah. So then, of course, now they are doing everything in their power to find anything they can on Stephen Avery.
Yeah.
That's when they find the body.
Yeah.
And of course, because it's right behind his house or his trailer.
Yeah.
And now Scott Tadich and Bobby Dassey are like, we need to fucking, like, we are set free. We need to make sure that he goes to prison forever.
Yeah.
So there's no collusion between the two.
Yeah.
But they are like,
They're both working for the same goal.
well, and they're helping each other, but like without knowing
don't
that
know.
they're helping
Yeah.
each other, right? And then, but then my thing is like, I don't know where Brendan falls into this. I don't know if he found out or he knows that that something
Yeah.
happened, and so they had to set him up to get rid of him because they never knew if he was going to slip up or something.
Yeah.
But like, because he never mentions it, and there's no mention of him saying anything about his brother or his stepdad.
No. I'm trying. What does Bobby say about Brendan? I'm trying to remember. Did Brendan tell him anything?
There was some comment about like a joke made about hiding the like where they're gonna hide the body or getting rid of the body or something.
Right.
It was like Brendan and Bobby and then like their friend or something, and then there had been a joke made, but it wasn't
Right.
it wasn't made. It turns out it wasn't made by Stephen Avery, but
Yeah.
Bobby said that it was.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. Drew's just showing me a picture of Scott Tadich, and goddamn, is he a
Piece of shit.
scummy looking motherfucker.
What a piece of shit. But anyway, so of course all this evidence is clearly like used by the police to like Avery's the only suspect. They don't investigate anybody else.
Yeah.
They immediately go, and then of course like the Manawatu County Police Department is not allowed on the property without federal investigators.
Yeah, because obviously it's like a huge conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Like the same sheriff's department investigating the guy they wrongly imprisoned for 18 years.
Yes.
So they turn it over to,
Wisconsin State Police, I guess, right?
State Police, and also any county sheriff they turn over to the next county.
Yes.
Yeah.
So so then of course now what happens is they're not allowed on the premises, but they need to get him. Like this,
Yeah.
they can't fuck this up.
Yeah,
they
and
have to get him to go to prison.
and that's the one thing that seems crazy to me from a legal standpoint. Like the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department was basically like barred from the investigation, and yet they're the ones who find this incriminating evidence. I'm like, how is that even admissible?
Like, and how do you not figure that out?
Yeah,
But the thing is, like, so they obviously like Link goes to the house, plants the keys
on like their 7th search of the house
in plain sight.
Yeah.
Right, and like they've been looking for keys the whole time.
Yes.
So that gets used against them, whatever. And that's why Tadich and Bobby Dassey's testimony is so anti-Avery, is because they need him to go to prison.
Yeah.
Manawatu County Police Department needs him to go to prison.
Yeah.
So that everybody saves face. And the thing is, like, I'm undecided on how deep the corruption goes, because
Right.
there's times where I kind of feel like the judge is in on it.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely times where some stuff comes up, and as a viewer, I go,
Yeah.
oh, there's no way he's going to let that go. And then he totally does.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know if he's in on it. I think he just might be kind of biased.
Yeah, or like, I feel like because he's part of the legal system, and this guy's already...
He just like favors
kind
the
of,
other
you know,
side.
right? And then like, all the things you find
Yeah.
out about the DA afterwards, and how scummy he is... And just like there's just so many hands in there that you can't really tell who's not trying to fuck him over.
And by the way, one of the people trying to fuck him over, Brendan's own attorney.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Well, 2 of them, right?
Yeah,
Because
but
the
like,
first guy was 100% just like take the plea deal. Like just take the plea deal. He'll get a deeper, longer sentences than you will. Just take it.
But then the second guy like got him to
Like,
I don't even understand what the intention was. Because the lawyer he got takes him to a federal detective, or
I think it's federal detective. Yeah.
yeah, and has him write a full confession.
Full confession and draw pictures of what
Yeah.
happened and what
And
he
what's
did.
crazy, they show the first confession he writes, where Teresa's not
No
there.
mention. No mention of the dead
He's
body.
like, I talked to my mom, I played PlayStation, I went to the bonfire for Halloween, I went home, went to bed.
I went home. I talked to my mom when I got home, and I went to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the investigator reads the confession and says, oh no, you're going to have to put
Yeah,
some more
where's
stuff
Teresa
to
in this? Like, why didn't you mention Teresa in this? And then he has to,
Yeah.
right?
So, like, another false confession.
Oh, and
Again, his lawyer made him do this. And that was the most baffling thing in the entire show for me.
yeah, 100%. And like the federal investigator guy
Yeah.
was insane.
Correct.
When he was doing the testimony and he starts crying.
Oh my god.
When they showed him the picture of like the blue ribbon, trying to do like, I can't. I'm sorry, I'm just really caught up on that picture of the blue ribbon around the tree.
Yeah.
Like that guy's an insane person.
Yeah.
But like yeah,
nuts.
so that was the theory that I had. I mean, like there was other parts of it that like I think at some point there was a part of me that thought maybe he did do it. Avery at some point, like I don't know exactly what the moment was, but it was like
there's points, yeah.
There's points, and I think it's like a lot of the like some of the evidence is like really blatantly obviously that it's not him, but then there is part of it where it's just where I kind of thought like, you know, this seems a little bit too convenient to
like,
look like it's not him.
And like he was, from all accounts, the last person to see her alive.
Yeah, and like the blood in the blood in the vehicle, like.
Yeah.
But then, like, honestly, like, why is there a pinhole in the top of that blood vial?
There's
like,
no good explanation.
Why? And the
than...
seal's clearly broken.
Yeah.
And the only people that can get in there are the police.
Yeah. And there's no reason for the seal to be broken.
Exactly. Like, there's so many things
yeah,
that, like.
That specific thing, I found it really hard to ever think anything other than innocent after seeing that.
Yes.
Because that's a tough one.
Yeah.
To explain.
And he doesn't seem like.
He doesn't, like, again, you can't always say, but he doesn't seem like a murderer.
No, and, like, you know how sometimes, like, even after they've been convicted, there is that moment where, like, you can see it in their face.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen lots of, like, documentaries and stuff.
Yeah.
There's one that Werner Herzog did called Into the Abyss. And it's, like, these three guys that murdered some people, and two of them claim innocence the whole time. The other guy literally is saying it was the other two. But the whole time that he's saying it's the other two, and you look at his face, you're like, that guy fucking did it. Like, he looks like he knows that he did it.
Yeah.
He's just got, like, that shit-eating face, right?
Yeah.
Like, I never got that
from
Stephen
there's
Avery.
something very sincere and earnest about Avery.
Yeah.
And, like, when he was falsely imprisoned for the rape, like, he swore his innocence up and down the whole time. And, like, in order to get parole, you have to admit guilt. You have to admit guilt and say you're sorry. And that starts things for getting parole earlier. And he never would. He swore innocence the whole time because he was innocent. Mm-hmm. And same thing with this murder. Like, he's been in jail for when did he would have gone to jail in 2006?
2006.
Yeah, so he's been in jail for 9 years for this and still completely swears he's innocent. And most people, even if they swear they're innocent in the trial and even after they go to jail for something, if they're guilty, they'll usually eventually admit to it. And he absolutely won't. Yeah. Not that specifically that doesn't mean 100% he's innocent, but it's one of the things that points to it.
Yeah. And I think another thing that, like, for me was that the first time he was in prison for those 18 years, like, when he did get out, he didn't immediately, like, oh, fucking police, they fucking framed me.
He was just happy to be out.
He was just glad he wasn't in prison anymore.
Yeah.
And then it took a little while before he actually was like... And I'm sure that him suing the police department was also partially, like, family and friends sort of
Sure,
getting in
yeah.
his ear, I'm sure. But like,
And probably lawyers were coming to him.
yeah, like it's
saying,
he never came. He didn't come out of jail and be like, "Oh, fucking cops frame me. Cops are scumbags. I hate cops." Like it was
yeah.
never. It was no
No,
mention of
it
that.
really
It
wasn't.
was literally just like, "I'm just glad to be home. I'm just glad to have my life back. Like that's
Yeah.
all that mattered, right?" So like
Yeah.
it's so
Now we should say that like this documentary obviously came with an angle. This was not a 50-50 documentary. Like the bulk of the documentary
Yeah.
is spent pointing towards his innocence. They present a lot of stuff, but most of it is in his favor from what they present and the way it's presented. So obviously that colors things, but they didn't. Nothing was false. They didn't lie about anything. So from what we saw, we can only go off of what we saw.
yes.
And just a lot of the stuff we saw, it's hard to wrap your head around him being guilty after seeing a lot of that stuff.
Yes, and I think that was probably the filmmaker's intentions,
Yeah,
or the documentary maker's intentions, was to like clearly think that he's innocent, right? Like
Yeah.
they're not going to go in and give you like, but that's how every documentary is. Like very rarely will you find a documentary that's
Yeah.
both ways.
yeah.
It's
Now,
very rare.
Yeah. Now I will talk about one at the end because it should be the subject of our next one of these. But we will talk about that at the end once we're
Sure.
finished.
So I have given my theory of what happened.
Yeah.
What do you feel is is the thing that happened?
Yeah, so your theory was sent to me by longtime listener, first time caller Steve Schneider. Earlier this week, I think when we were talking about it a bit, and he sent me probably what would have been the Reddit posters like written out theory of it. So I hadn't thought about that myself. I definitely hadn't thought about Bobby Dassey being involved. I don't know if I specifically thought about Scott Tadich being the murderer. I just remember thinking when I saw him, that guy's a scumbag, and he's real fucking excited that Avery's in jail.
He's the happiest man.
Yeah. So theory wise, the problem is I don't have anything that great. The biggest problem is who did it. Who did it and what's the motive? Because any way you slice it, there's very little obvious motive for anyone to have killed her. Because Scott Tadich and Bobby Dassey don't have motive.
No.
They just wanted to rape and murder someone, as far as we know, as far as that theory goes, right?
Yeah.
So,
which is hard to prove.
Which is very hard to prove. So that's what makes it so tough, is finding who killed her, because it's a tough thing to say that the police killed her.
Yeah.
And framed Avery for it. It's not impossible, but it's one thing to say, because and they go through it in the show. Most police framing is not creating a crime out of nothing. It's taking an existing crime that has been committed by a criminal and then framing it in such a way that it points to who they want to be guilty. That's police framing. Police framing is not the police murdering someone and then setting up the person they want to be set up. So I think that's real tough. Again, I don't think it's impossible because there seem like some fucking scumbags in that police department.
Yeah.
But as far as the framing, yeah, I think between two things, there was obvious police corruption involved. The first thing is the call by Colburn, we decided?
Yeah, Colburn.
To dispatch about Teresa's car 2 days before Teresa's car was in theory discovered. Who is obviously looking at the car. Like, just listen to the conversation. There's no question he is reading the license plate off the license plate and looking at the car. And the second thing is the blood that was found on the car. They go to the evidence and check the sample of Stephen Avery's blood that they have in the evidence, and the top of it has clearly been punctured with a syringe. And as they said, unless they were lying in the documentary, which I think someone would have called them on by now, there is literally zero reason for that to have happened, period.
Yeah. And also it was thawed, right? Like it was liquid blood.
Yes.
It wasn't
Yeah.
frozen.
Yeah, it was liquid. With basically preservatives in it.
Yeah.
And that was the thing in the trial, because basically if you could prove that the blood found on the car had those preservatives in it, then 100% he was framed.
Yeah.
But there's no reliable test for that. And basically they had the FBI make up a test.
Yeah. Which the lady then fucked up.
And well, she contaminated the control, not the actual experimental one.
But she also used all of the sample.
Yeah, so she couldn't redo it.
Yeah.
And then, the defense had, both sides had an expert. One expert said, yeah, the test is good, there's no preservative in it. And then the expert on the defense side said, basically, there's no way for the test to tell if there's preservative. It will, if it says there's preservative, there's preservative. If it doesn't say there's preservative, there still might be. Mm-hmm. So it's a completely unreliable test, and like a test that they hadn't done in 10 years.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't even be having this conversation if they had found preservative in the blood.
Yeah.
Because that would have been it. Like, oh, police framed you, you're innocent.
Yeah.
But still, just the fact that the blood, that A, they had a blood sample, and B, it was liquid and punctured.
Yes.
Like there's no, I don't know how you can get around that. There's obvious framing, and then the whole finding the keys as well seems real weird. Mm-hmm. But police 100% fucked over Avery. I never really thought he was guilty, and from the blood thing on, my opinion never really changed that he was innocent.
Right.
Because there was nothing stronger than that ever pushed me mm-hmm. in the other direction. But just the big thing that just kept coming is like who killed her? Like, if he didn't, if the police didn't, then, and if she was in fact killed somewhere on the property, then it's sort of got to be someone there, which lends good credence to the Scott and Bobby theory. Mm-hmm. And then I guess there's the outside chance that it was just like a random killing or part of an unsolved serial killing or something, but yeah. It's just tough to know. And then the more evidence that it wasn't Avery is that they did not find a speck of her DNA anywhere in his trailer.
No. Which is where Brendan Dassey's testimony had said she was tied to the bed, he slit her throat.
There should have been blood everywhere.
Well, even like the mattress
Yeah.
would have been soaked. And then that the one lady that did the DNA testing,
Yeah.
like, well, did you find any blood on the mattress or a pillow or
nothing?
Like, I don't think I tested any mattresses or
bedding.
They didn't even test it because there was no evidence.
It was
there,
obvious,
right?
Yeah, and then they said she was taken to the garage and all that. So they like tore up the concrete in the garage for like where the blood would have dripped to.
Yeah,
and there and two things. One, not a speck of her DNA. So that means one of two things. One, she wasn't there. Two, they did an amazing cleaning job. Here's why it's impossible. They couldn't have done an amazing cleaning job besides the fact they're dummies.
Well, one of them is a legal retard.
Yeah. And the other one's close. Didn't they say, like, Avery's IQ was, like, 80?
It's lower.
Yeah. It's below average.
It's definitely below average, yeah. But I don't think he was, like... I don't think he was retard level.
No, he's not retard level. No, Brendan's got the retard card on lock. But yeah, the reason why it's clear they didn't do an amazing like bleach job is that if they had done an amazing bleach job, they would have found zero DNA.
Yeah.
What they found was a ton of Stephen Avery's DNA because it's his garage.
Yes.
And he's in it.
Yes.
So she was never there. She was never in his house or garage. Period. Like it's basically 100%.
Yes.
So which that completely refutes Brendan's false confession.
Yeah.
So his confession is wrong. His confession is basically provably untrue. And his confession is largely what got Avery convicted.
Yes.
So there's the thing. So yeah, I pretty close to 100% do not think Avery did it. I don't think Brendan ever saw the woman.
No, I don't think so either.
Period. And so that just leaves who did it. So I wish I had like a good solid theory. Like, I guess the best one I've heard is yours, and which is the same thing Steve sent me, which is the Scott and Bobby one. I wish Scott and Bobby had more motive to rape and murder a woman.
I mean, other than the fact that it's
their-
like white trash Wisconsin,
Sure.
and there's a young girl that you can.
You do what you got to do,
Right?
I guess. But yeah, like I wish there was something more that pointed to a serial killer or something,
Right.
or like the crazy theory with the the guy's name is Edward Edwards, by the way.
Yeah.
The guy who may be responsible for
Wait,
this.
Eddie Edwards?
Could be Eddie Edwards.
Oh shit.
Yeah, the Zodiac killings, John Benet Ramsey and the West Memphis Three.
Yeah. There is two other things that have been brought up, which were after Stephen Avery went to jail. At some point, he accused his two brothers of doing it,
Okay.
and then apparently later he recanted that and said like, "Oh, I don't know," but they were there too.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what happened. And the other one is that the two things that were questionable to me at least were, one was the ex-boyfriend who had said that he couldn't remember when he last talked to her, when he last saw her.
Yeah.
That the roommate didn't really know anything.
Yeah.
So
that was a little sketchy.
That was a little sketchy. And then the brother going into her cell phone, into her voicemail messages,
and possibly deleting
some, and that the voicemail had been activated on the 2nd, which was 2 days after anybody had last seen her.
Yeah, and in theory 2 days after her death.
Which was a little bit questionable to me.
Yeah.
But I still don't think the brother did it.
I don't think so.
Maybe the ex-boyfriend had something to do with it, because...
Could, yeah.
He did seem a little weird, but weird doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but simplest explanation is usually the right one, so you gotta believe it was probably someone on the property. Whether it's Scott and Bobby, or Avery's brothers, or someone else. But it seems like, because she was on the because Avery admits to meeting her,
He
right?
admits she was there.
Yeah.
And he
So
admits to, a lot of things. About having interactions with her, talking to her, signing the paperwork, or she gave him a magazine. But then also, when he was talking to his here's the weird thing, is that he had two fiancées while he was in prison.
Yeah, he's had 3 significant others.
Yes.
He had a wife before his first arrest.
Yes.
Who then divorced him while he was in jail for the rape.
Yeah.
And then he got out. Then he met the next one while he was out.
He met her while he was out.
Yeah.
Then she went to jail, and then the thing happened.
Yeah, she was in jail for a DUI when he got arrested for the murder.
Yes.
And then, but they were still together for a while, and then it became too much for her.
Well, it was because the police were trying to get her to stay away from him.
Yeah.
Because they were going to frame her for some stuff. And
so
he kind of had to get her to go away.
Yeah, and she was like, "All right, I'm out."
Yeah, but so the thing with the second one is that when she was in prison the night of the supposed murder, they had phone logs.
Right.
Of her phoning him.
Yeah.
And she said that when she talked to him, there was no panic in
Certainly
his voice.
Didn't sound like a guy who had just raped and murdered
They
someone.
talked for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So there's
totally normal conversation,
Yeah.
in theory, an hour or two after the murder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And the thing is, he even says that Teresa Hallbuck left, and then he went and talked to her on the phone.
Yeah.
Which the phone records
Which
prove
adds
the
up.
time.
Yep.
And then if you look at the testimony from Brendan Dassey,
Doesn't work.
Time frame does not work at all. The time frame is totally off.
Yeah.
And then there was some stuff in the Scott Tadich testimony where he It's like he said, oh, it was what, like 2:45, but it was actually like 3:45 or something,
or
like
even further off
It was
than
further
that.
off than that. Like there was a
Yeah.
time gap, and he's like, oh, I don't know, it was so long ago. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it was like afternoon versus evening. Like
yeah,
he
it was,
like,
yeah. So yeah, it's that's the thing. It had to be somebody on the property, but like, will we ever actually find out? Probably not.
That's what I hate. Is like
The only option we'll get is that he might at some point they might come back up, and then they'll realize there was a lack of evidence, and he'll get set free.
Yeah.
But we might not actually ever find out what happened.
that's the thing. I like and it's not like really settled until you have who did it, and I hate not knowing.
But what
it's
like
such a piss off.
It would be so satisfying.
Oh, so
to
satisfying.
find out what actually happened.
Yeah.
But we will never actually find out.
That's
what
why
happened.
That's why I want there to be an afterlife, because I just want to find things out. But I feel like it's not going to happen, which is very disappointing. But
If I made all of my poo into bricks, how big of a wall would I be able to build? That's my favorite one.
enough to keep out the Mexicans.
Why do you want to keep out the Mexicans?
They're rapists
And murderers.
and murderers.
And drug dealers.
Was it maybe it was the Mexicans?
Might have been Mexicans.
We should investigate the Mexican theory.
But that is a very interesting. Like, I was so caught up in that whole thing. Like, I don't think I've ever enjoyed watching something as more in the last little while than I have with that.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a little bit in the middle that was kind of
It got real.
very testimony.
It got real courtroomy.
courtroomy,
but
then
even some of that was pretty interesting.
well, then some kind of crazy screwball would come, and you're
Exactly.
like, "Oh, he's not getting arrested for that." Or like, they're not going to find him guilty, and then it's like,
and then boom.
"Oh, what?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then even in the courtroom rooms, because after each day of court, they would do like a mini press conference.
Yes.
With all these reporters from around Wisconsin and I guess
At some point national.
Yeah, and some national. And there was one woman reporter there who was so fucking hot, I couldn't even believe it.
Yeah, she was a babe.
And yeah, she...
And the thing too is, like, it's funny how the reporters, like, when the DA would go up there, and the reporters would just like tear apart their testimony, everything.
Like every reporter believed he was innocent.
Like every reporter was smarter than the evidence the DA had
the
given.
district attorney.
Like, that's how crazy it was.
Yeah. And I love, it was somewhat satisfying in the last episode. They tell you, oh yeah, by the way, the DA turned out to be a complete scumbag and was found to be sexually harassing domestic abuse victims that he was representing.
Yeah.
And the texts he was sending to them were like hilarious.
They're very funny.
Yeah, he first bragged about his $350,000 house, which at first I laughed at, because like $350,000 here buys you, I don't know, 8 square feet in the bad part of town.
Yep.
In Vancouver. But then I was thinking, in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, yeah, $350,000 probably buys you a fucking palace.
Probably a pretty nice house.
Yeah, probably a really nice house.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense. But just like, what a weird way to try to get someone to fuck you. Is to like weirdly like brag about your house.
Yeah, or just like, I'm the fucking DA. Like,
I'm the DA.
You're not gonna get with the DA. Like, are you kidding me? Like, and you're a big fat guy with a mustache. No, I'm okay, thanks.
Yeah. What a shit. Like, and he just seemed like such an asshole from day one.
Yeah.
And I'm glad.
But aren't all DAs?
Kinda.
Like that's the thing is, for me, is like, and like this is brought up in the
DI and SVU is nice.
Sure. In like the trial, it's brought up that like a lot of people close to Stephen Avery, including his lawyers, feel like it was a never innocent until proven guilty. It was he's guilty, you have to prove he's innocent to his lawyers.
Yeah, which is the opposite of how the law is supposed to work.
Yeah, like the DA went into it as like it's already final and set that he's guilty.
Yeah.
If you want to waste our time trying to prove that he's innocent, go for
ahead.
it. But he's already fucking guilty.
Yeah. Oh, and just to call back to me mentioning incest earlier, out of nowhere during the trial, the DA says, "Oh yeah, also all the Averys are fucking each other." I'm like,
Yeah.
where did that come from?
Yeah, that was pretty insane.
And like everyone was cool with him saying that.
Yeah, because it's.
I don't think it even elicited an objection from the defense.
No, no. But like, also, like, is there really any proof of that?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, they didn't seem incestuous. Like, they
No.
did not seem inbred hicks.
No, they're white. They're white trash.
They're white trash,
But
yeah,
there's-
absolutely. But there's white trash everywhere.
There's lots of white trash out there that isn't fucking their family.
Yeah, like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Like
it was,
left field.
It was so weird.
Yeah.
And I was just amazed how cool everyone was with it. Like, oh yeah, they're probably fucking each other.
Yeah, they're fucking.
Yeah. One other thing. I don't think it's really really points to anything. Just that Steve and I are talking about the weird videos of Teresa. They all sound like suicide notes.
They do.
'Cause she's like, I've had a happy life. I'm like, what person in their 20s
Yeah.
is filming videos
Yeah.
saying they had a happy
Like at
life?
one point, she's like, "Oh, you know, if I died tomorrow, like I
Yeah.
would know that like my family knew that I had a happy life." Like,
Yeah.
Why are you? First of all, why does this footage exist?
Yeah, it's weird.
Right. Like that's very questionable
Yeah,
to me.
there is a lot of video footage of all of us, and I don't think there's anything like that.
Well, we don't know what Dan does in his spare time.
We don't know what Dan does in his spare time. So maybe Dan has some video suicide notes out there. But
I would wager to guess there's at least 5.
yeah. But yeah, those are just weird. Again, what does that mean? Probably nothing. Like,
No.
I don't think she killed herself and dumped her own remains
No.
in Avery's
It's
burn
just
pit.
a weird thing.
It's just weird.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing.
Yeah.
So final say on this is you and I both agree that we don't think he did it.
I really again from
Yeah.
I didn't sort of from the start because that's how the show was framed, but from the blood on, like the clearly tampered with blood sample on, I was never swayed the other way. I just wish I had a better thought
Explanation
of who did
Yeah.
kill her.
Yeah.
And I actually wish there was more or some evidence that the police killed her, because that would actually wrap everything up.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're murderers.
That's the thing is like
It's one thing
you've got to be a monster
Yeah.
to like
even corrupt cop to murderer is
yeah
elite.
like corrupt cop like planting marijuana or cocaine.
Yeah, sprinkling some cocaine on the black guy after you shoot him.
Yeah,
that's
sure, right?
It's par for the course, but
like actually murdering like a 24-year-old
a completely innocent woman,
yeah,
just to get a guy.
I don't. I feel
That's a
like
stretch.
I feel like a lot of them were scumbags, but they're not that big of scumbags.
That's the thing.
They're not murderers.
Yeah. So
Anyways.
it's tough, but yeah, I'd say it's safe to say we are both pretty darn sure Stephen Avery didn't murder anyone, just like he didn't rape anyone for the last jail sentence he served.
Yep.
Which would make it 27 years and counting jail time he has served for crimes he did not commit. Fuck your life, Stephen Avery. That sucks. Yeah.
You said you had another documentary that we should
Yes.
do for the next one.
It from very early on into this. Well, one other I'll mention that isn't what I was talking about, but anyone who has not watched The Jinx on HBO, which aired I think around spring, March last year, 2015, is great. It's I think 6 episodes, so you can bang it out in a day if you want to. And what's great about it versus Making a Murderer, or the one other thing I'll talk about, is it has a super satisfying ending.
Ah,
Oh, you haven't seen it?
I have not.
Oh, you got to watch the Jinx. Jinx
Okay,
is great.
I'm on it.
The and the
So
guy,
you said it was HBO.
yeah,
Okay.
the guy Robert Durst is just a
Oh, it's the Robert Durst thing.
yeah. Oh, it is, and he is a fascinating individual. Like, he's so weird and awkward and creepy, and yet somehow charming. It's amazing, and like, you hear all the evidence, and I think if you just read the evidence on paper, you're like, well, of course he killed the people. Like, there's no question. But you watch the show, you're like, I don't know. He seems all right. Like, he's a little weird, but I think he's okay. But the last episode, the last 30 seconds of the last episode are the most satisfying end to one of these documentaries ever, and fucking chilling. Like, turn off the lights when you watch it. It's amazing. So yeah, watch The Jinx, but that's not what I was talking about. What I am talking about is the podcast Serial. And very early into watching Making Murder, I'm like, oh, this is just like Serial, and I love Serial. So Serial...
Fruit Loops or cornflakes?
I'm a Fruit Loops man. You know me. Not to say out of the blue. I'm pre-blue. I'm pink, red, orange, yellow. The way it got in there. I guess green. I guess green came in there sometime. I think I'm dating myself by not mentioning green. I'm pretty sure they added green in like 1989.
Probably. When you were 14.
When I was 14. But yeah, so Serial is it's a weekly, well now bi-weekly podcast. So their season 2 is happening right now. They're 2 completely separate stories. So what I'm talking about is season 1. So it aired fall winter of 2014, and so it's a 12-part series, just like done very much like Making a Murderer, only there's more of a host aspect to it. It's one woman who works for This American Life and some news outlets who acts as the host, whereas Making a Murder didn't really have it. They just presented stuff.
It was just like interviews and news footage.
So this is very much run by one main woman, and so the season 1 story is a high school girl was murdered in 1999. She was Korean, and her Muslim, but very, very whitewashed, like no accent, nothing. Ex-boyfriend was convicted for a murder and has been serving jail time for her murder since, and is still in jail. And so there's tons of interviews with him from jail and lots of other people involved with it. And the thing with it is he was convicted on basically zero physical evidence. And I found this one, Serial, even more so than Making a Murderer. Actually, a lot more so than Making a Murderer. There's tons of twists and turns as different evidence is presented and different people are interviewed. Like episode 5, you'll be like, there's no way this guy could have killed anyone. And then season 6, something comes up, you're like, oh shit. I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
And like, it's so back and forth, and I will say, I don't want to spoil anything. It does not have the satisfying end of The Jinx. It's not entirely like Making a Murderer, but more like Making a Murderer in its progression than The Jinx. But it's fascinating, and like all the different people they talk to and all the different angles, and it's sort of amazing he got convicted based on what they have. He was basically, it's sort of, and again, sort of like Making a Murderer, he's convicted basically based on one other person's testimony, and there was no actual physical evidence to back up that person's testimony. So it is similar in that respect. But I found it every bit as fascinating as Making a Murderer, and I think anyone who hasn't listened to it and really enjoyed Making a Murderer, I think if you listen to, I think once you're partway into episode 1, you'll be like, I gotta listen to this whole thing this weekend. So, and it's pretty audio bingeable. It's 12 episodes. I don't think any episode's longer than an hour. I think most are 45 minutes. So you can bang it out in 9, 10, 11 hours over the course of a couple days. And yeah, it's so fascinating, and you man, I just found myself like oscillating so much between like he did it, he didn't do it. He's like extremely well spoken, and like he couldn't sound less like a murderer just from the interviews, and it's crazy, and just like some of the stuff that comes up, and like so many weird like coincidences or non-coincidences, and yeah, but I strongly urge anyone listening, and I especially strongly urge you to listen to it so we can do one of these on Serial, because there's I think there's just as much discussion to be had, and there may we may even disagree at the end of it, depending on because you really can go either way. And
As soon as this is over, I'm gonna go get it. So
yeah, and I got Dan to listen to it a few weeks ago, and he just powered through it in a couple days. And actually, I think that was what we talked about mostly while you were asleep in the car last time.
that's a good thing I was asleep, so I didn't.
Yeah. So
spoilers.
nothing's been spoiled. So he may even want to get in on that one,
Sweet.
or he might not. I don't care.
Okay, I don't even feel it. Who wants to butt fuck the sad boy?
Doesn't even feel it. So
Is Dan the sad boy? I think Dan's the sad boy.
I think so. So yeah, that's
That was good.
that's that.
God, I love that show.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And like I said, watch The Jinx and listen to Serial.
And stay tuned for season 2 of Making a Murderer, starring Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
Jimmy Snuka edition. Should be good.
Where he was framed by... I got nothing. He did it. He fucking did it.
He definitely did it. Yeah, that'll be a very different...
It'll be 10 minutes of just like Jimmy Snuka met his girlfriend. Jimmy Snuka was on a bunch of
cocaine.
A bunch of cocaine. His girlfriend talked back to him. He murdered her.
He stabbed
End
her.
of season.
He stabbed her, and Vince McMahon covered it up, and that's the end of this documentary.
Do you really think Vince helped him cover it up?
From
I feel like some of the wrestlers might have.
Vince was at the scene.
Oh,
Yeah, Vince talked the cops out of it. Yeah, like at the like I think I think Jimmy like called Vince was his first phone call.
Interesting.
And then Vince is like, oh no, Vince basically told them like he's an island savage who doesn't understand English. Leave him alone. And that was it. And the cops, to their non-credit, said, fine.
That's the best evidence ever.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
Sorry,
no.
he's a savage.
No, Vince was heavily involved in covering it up.
This is for another day.
Yes.
This podcast will happen. Did Vince help Jimmy Snuka cover up his dead girlfriend?
Absolutely. End of story.
End of story. End of podcast.
Yeah. So, is that the end of this emergency podcast? Any other bits and pieces
I think we got most of it covered.
Yeah. I think so. Well, until next time, whatever next time is in relation to this podcast, we'll certainly bring you some other. Yeah, probably Serial. So until next time, a lot of good choices, but until next time, Andrew Colburn is a shithead.
Jimmy Superfly Snuka is a shithead.
All right, fair enough.